Okay, welcome to Sprout School, week 5. Thank you guys so much for being here. Because it is Thanksgiving week, tonight's class is pretty short, and we're also a pretty small group. So the plan for tonight's session is we're going to walk through the project timeline, talk a little bit about project evaluation, look at an example of a project plan from last year's cohort to kind of give an idea of what that'll look like for you guys. And yeah, that's the plan. But any insights that you all have about evaluation, the project, any questions, please feel free to jump in anytime and share comments or questions. Okay. So last week we talked about Learning Lab 1, sharing our asset maps, and introduced Learning Lab 2, so who is on your Sprout School team, and that builds from Learning Lab 1, thinking about how to leverage your assets to build a team that will work well together for your project. And then my coworker, Casey Withers, was with us to talk a little bit about themes of success in farm to school education and did a tremendous job of giving an overview of the Maple in the Classroom program and how it operates at Hillsborough Elementary School in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. And as I already said, yep, tonight we're talking about program evaluation and project details, so we'll just jump right in. So, the timeline for your project, you've already done Learning Lab 1. Learning Lab 2 is due Tuesday, December 10th, so that's 2 weeks from now. And then Learning Lab 3 is due January 26th. So there's a big gap between Learning Lab 2 and Learning Lab 3 because we recognize that the holidays are in the middle of that. And you might not be thinking about writing a project plan for your Sprout School project. So anyway, that project plan is due at the end of January. Once we have that project plan, which includes your budget, we can go ahead and distribute the funds for the project. And then based on the content of your project, think about assigning a coach to work with you on the project and just check in and see how things are going and provide advice where they can. In this photo on the right, I worked at Blandy Experimental Farm last summer, and it's owned by the University of Virginia. It's one of the research sites, and they ran a summer camp, and this is one of our participants from the summer camp. So it's fun to have that picture in there and that memory. Okay, so then in the months of February, March, and April, you're just carrying out your project. If it's helpful for us, Jenny and me to come visit your project site. We have that in the budget, so that's something we can think about. And then in May, the Learning Lab for the final project report is due, and we will distribute the participation stipends, are $200, and celebrate your awesome Sprout School projects. And if your project is not complete by May, that is totally okay. We just need some kind of written record that you've begun your project or have an evaluation plan for your project to distribute that participation stipend. And this photo on the left comes from Upshur County. I pulled it from the Farm to School Facebook page. They were using some farm fresh eggs to make scrambled eggs and pancakes in the classroom to do a little classroom breakfast, which was really cute. Okay, actually, I'll pause here and ask if anyone has any questions about the Sprout School project and project timeline. This timeline is also laid out in the Sprout School syllabus, which you all received early on in one of my early emails about Sprout School, but you can also always find it on our class Moodle page. It's right at the top there. Also, another clarifying point is I think Jenny already talked to you about this, Noel, but if you are working, if you have like multiple projects that you're managing with multiple project teams, there can be funding for multiple projects, just as long as there's a clear plan for those projects and clear team. So that is an option as well. And another option is that you can work with another person to get double the funds for your project. We had a couple of folks do that in cohort one, two people from Refresh Appalachia, and then a partnership between a director of a Montessori school and a owner of a farm, which was pretty cool to do a family farm day. Okay, well, if you do think of questions, feel free to jump in or just leave them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll keep moving and grooving. Um, so there's just a quick slide on program evaluation, and we have this slide in here because this is really why we have you all do Learning Lab 3 is because there's so much evidence that comes from community development that if you come into a project with a clear plan, then it makes project implementation more successful and it makes evaluation more effective at the end. So considering some evaluation questions from the beginning, like what does success look like? How will you know when you've achieved it? What's the finish line? What boundaries do you have to work within? And we've got a framework for considering those questions. Casey mentioned it last week, and it's making SMART goals. We did this in so many um, yeah, groups I was involved with in college. And as I've said before, I love a snappy graphic. And so this one comes from Bite-Sized Learning and gives examples of how to make your goals more specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And that is what the acronyms SMART stands for. So instead of I will get fit, I will run. That is the specific action that will be taken twice a week for at least 2 miles so I can finish a marathon by the end of 2024. My friend Jack just ran a marathon like last weekend, and I think that the person who might have written this example for Bite Size Learning had not run a marathon because he was running 20 miles for training before he completed the marathon. So maybe like upping the mileage as you go for the uh yeah, for the goals for running a marathon. But anyway, it was just funny. I didn't, when I pulled this graphic for my presentation last year, I didn't notice that, but because I've been talking to someone a lot who's been training for a marathon, it made me think about the achievable goal, and this one might need a little bit of an adjustment. But all of this is to say, yeah, setting smart goals can be helpful for the Sprout School project. And what that looks like, I will share my different screen. And I'm going to actually go ahead and pull up one of the Learning Lab 3s from last year. So this is from Liz Campbell. We highlighted her Sprout School project in week 2. She was building a sensory garden at the 9/11 Memorial Universal Garden in Berkeley Springs. So her SMART goals, as you can see outlined in Learning Lab 3, specific, this is what she's doing. Measurable, this is, I can zoom into this, I think it's a little blurry, but a KWL chart. You fill it out at the beginning, what you know, what you want to know, what you've learned. And then a little self-survey to, yeah, describe how they're feeling. Achievable talks about sources for funding and the team that's going to make it all possible. Why it's important. They have, like, this talks about why the Morgan County Garden Club was founded, and it's to think about establishing this universal garden so that everyone has a space to reflect and feel welcome and connect with nature, which is so cool. And then this is their timeline. And then you can see that this action items table builds off of Learning Lab 2 because it assigns a specific person to each of the tasks who is a part of the project team. And then there's even an evaluation plan, like a rough outline of an evaluation plan that we ask you all to include in Learning Lab 3. Um, and yeah, Liz has some observations, and as we'll say in the directions, deliverables are great. Plants and seeds are planted and growing. Fantastic. You can see it happen. And then some kind of way to evaluate a knowledge gain or to evaluate feeling, some kind of like written record is great too. And so she's got both of those elements incorporated. Cool. Well, I will just pause here for a second and ask you all if anyone's willing to share what are some project evaluation methods you all have used in the past or currently use? Because I'm, yeah, always interested in knowing what has been effective or what hasn't worked so well.
I like, after I teach a series of classes, I like asking them what their favorite activities were, just to get a feel for how they enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like that too. When I was we I before I started in this role, I worked at a residential environmental education center, and the kids came on Monday, left on Wednesday, came on Wednesday, left on Friday, and in that window of time took 14 classes. And so by the end, I was always interested in, like, well, what did you guys enjoy? What wasn't so great? Because yeah, I feel like that feedback is really important for thinking about shaping programming. Okay. Well, we'll jump back in to the presentation. And this slide is just to say that Learning Lab 2 is due in 2 weeks. I'll send out a copy of it via email tomorrow when I send the recording of tonight's class. And yeah, also coming up on December 10th, um, Brittany Barlett, who is the executive director of Try This West Virginia, will be speaking about the Try This mini grants available, rolling youth leadership mini grants, and what it takes for teams to apply for and receive a Try This mini grant. And Learning Lab 3 is structured in a way so that if you were interested in applying for funding to receive a Try This mini grant to kind of build upon your project, that's an option. Or is particularly the June one. It's a little bit tight of a timeline to make the February one. And then the youth leadership mini grants are, as it says, rolling available anytime. And I think it's kind of middle and high school. I don't know if there's a set age range that to apply for one of those, but the application does have to come from a young person. So I'm excited to hear her talk a little bit more about Try This and this grant program. Okay, well, that was record time. Um, these are all my things, and we're only 20 minutes in, but like I said, wanted to intentionally uh keep it pretty short, and we will actually introduce Learning Lab 3 at the end of class next time. So go look a little bit more about at those specific directions. And then, like I said, that will be due at the end of January. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for popping on, and I hope everybody has a very happy Thanksgiving. I am thankful for all of you and the awesome work that you guys are doing around youth agriculture and youth education in your communities. So, yeah, thank you, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Bye.